What happens when a simple morning interview turns into one of the most shocking confrontations in daytime television history? It only took 39 seconds for a beloved host to go from welcoming his guest with open arms to escorting her off the set in what became the most talked about exit in Good Morning America's history. The morning started like any other. Michael Strahan sat comfortably in his chair, his signature smile lighting up the studio as the cameras prepared to roll. Across from him sat Meghan Markle, poised and ready for what was supposed to be a friendly conversation about her latest projects. The audience had no idea they were about to witness television history. "Welcome to Good Morning America," Michael said warmly, leaning forward with genuine enthusiasm. "We're so excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining us." Meghan offered a tight smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thanks for having me," she replied, her tone already carrying an edge that made the producers exchange nervous glances. Michael, ever the professional, dove right into the interview. "So, let's talk about your new initiative. You've been working on some really inspiring projects lately. What can you tell us about that?" But instead of answering the question, Meghan shifted in her seat and looked directly at the camera. "You know, Michael, before we get into that, I think we need to address something more important." The studio fell silent. Michael's eyebrows raised slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Of course. What's on your mind?" "The way the media treats certain people versus others," Meghan began, her voice rising with each word. "The double standards, the constant scrutiny. I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "Well, I think it's important to have these conversations. Media responsibility is something we take very seriously here. But I'd love to hear more specifically about what you're working on right now, what you're passionate about." Meghan's expression hardened. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. You're trying to control the narrative. You're trying to steer me away from what really matters." The audience stirred uncomfortably. Michael's smile remained, though confusion flickered across his face. "I'm not trying to control anything. We're here to talk about you and your work. That's why you're here, right?" "Is it?" Meghan shot back. "Or am I here so you can ask me the same shallow questions everyone else asks? So you can put on a show for your viewers?" Michael took a breath, his professionalism never wavering. "Meghan, I think there might be some confusion here. We prepared questions based on what your team sent us. We want to give you a platform to share your message." "My team," Meghan said with a bitter laugh. "You mean the people who are supposed to protect me, but who really just want to make everyone else happy. The people who told me this would be different." The cameras kept rolling. Michael glanced briefly at his producers before returning his attention to his guest. "I'm sorry if there was some miscommunication. Why don't we start over? Tell me what you'd like to talk about. The floor is yours." But Meghan wasn't interested in starting over. "You know what, Michael? I've done hundreds of interviews. I've sat in chairs just like this one, smiled for cameras just like these, and answered questions from hosts who pretend to care. But they don't. You don't." Michael's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "That's not fair. I do care. Everyone on this team cares. We wouldn't have invited you here if we didn't." "Don't patronize me," Meghan snapped, her voice cutting through the studio. "I've been patronized enough. I've been told to smile enough. I've been told what I can and cannot say enough." The audience was completely silent now. Michael sat up straighter, his voice calm but firm. "Nobody here is patronizing you. Nobody is telling you what to say. But I think we need to remember that we're having a conversation, not a confrontation." Meghan laughed again, this time louder and more pointed. "A conversation? Is that what you call it when you invite someone on your show and then try to make them dance like a puppet?" Michael's patience was clearly being tested, but he remained the picture of grace. "Meghan, I have to be honest with you. I'm not sure where this is coming from. We've been nothing but respectful. If something happened before you came on set, If someone on my team did something to upset you, please tell me. We can address it. There you go again, Meghan said, shaking her head, making it seem like I'm the problem, like I'm being difficult. That's what they all do. I'm not making you out to be anything, Michael replied, his voice still steady. I'm trying to understand what's happening right now, because honestly, this isn't the conversation we planned to have. Meghan leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Maybe that's exactly the problem, Michael. Maybe I'm tired of having the conversations other people plan for me. Maybe I want to have a real conversation for once. Michael spread his hands, genuinely trying to connect. Then let's have a real conversation. I'm right here. I'm listening. What do you want to talk about? What do I want to talk about? Meghan's voice dripped with sarcasm. I want to talk about how people like you sit in these comfortable chairs and judge people like me. I want to talk about how easy it is for you to smile and nod and pretend like you understand what it's like to be constantly criticized, constantly questioned, constantly doubted. The audience gasped. Michael's expression showed genuine hurt for the first time. People like me? Meghan, I think you're forgetting that I've faced my own challenges. I've dealt with criticism. I've had to work incredibly hard to get where I am. Oh, please, Meghan scoffed. Don't compare your experience to mine. You have no idea what I've been through. Michael took another deep breath, his professionalism hanging by a thread. You're absolutely right. I don't know exactly what you've been through. That's why I'm here asking questions, trying to give you space to share your story. But you're not letting me do that. Because I don't need you to give me space, Meghan fired back. I don't need your permission. I don't need your platform. I don't need any of this. Michael finally showed a flash of frustration. Then why did you agree to come here? Why did you say yes to this interview if you didn't want to be here? Meghan stood up abruptly, her microphone nearly falling off. Maybe that's a question you should ask yourself. Why did you invite someone you clearly don't respect? Michael stood as well, his voice rising for the first time. I do respect you. But respect goes both ways, Meghan. And right now, you're being incredibly disrespectful to me, to my team, and to everyone who's here trying to make this work. Disrespectful? Meghan's voice reached a new pitch. You want to talk about disrespect? Let's talk about how you interrupted me 3 times already. Let's talk about how you keep trying to put words in my mouth. Michael's face showed complete bewilderment. I haven't interrupted you once. You've been talking non-stop since we started, and I've been trying to understand what's going on. There you go again, twisting things around, Meghan said, pointing an accusing finger at him. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You make me out to be the crazy one. Nobody said anything about anyone being crazy, Michael said firmly. But I am saying that this conversation has gone completely off the rails, and I don't think it's productive for either of us to continue like this. Meghan crossed her arms. So now you're kicking me out? Is that what's happening? Michael shook his head. I'm not kicking you out. I'm suggesting that maybe we need to take a break, reset, and figure out what's really going on here. I know exactly what's going on here, Meghan said, her voice cold. You invited me on your show so you could make yourself look good, so you could be the hero who gave poor Meghan Markle a chance to speak. Well, I don't need your charity. The audience was completely stunned. Michael's jaw clenched, and for a moment, his composure cracked. That's completely unfair and completely untrue. I invited you here because I thought we could have a meaningful conversation. I thought we could talk about the important work you're doing. But you've turned this into something I don't even recognize. Maybe you don't recognize it because you're not used to people standing up to you, Meghan shot back. Michael's voice dropped low, serious in a way that commanded attention. Meghan, I have been nothing but kind to you from the moment you walked into this studio. My team has been accommodating. We've tried to make you comfortable, but you came here with an agenda that had nothing to do with having a real conversation. How dare you, Meghan said, her face flushing. How dare you accuse me of having an agenda when you're the one with the scripted questions and the fake smile? My smile isn't fake, Michael said quietly, but it's definitely harder to maintain right now. I'm a professional, Meghan. I've been doing this for years, and I've never, ever had a guest treat me the way you're treating me right now. Meghan's eyes narrowed. Maybe that's because your other guests are too afraid to tell you the truth. Maybe they're too worried about their image to call out what's really happening. Michael spread his hands, his voice pleading now. What is really happening, Meghan? Please, tell me. Because from where I'm standing, you walked onto this set angry about something that has nothing to do with me or this show. Everything has to do with you and this show, Meghan insisted. You represent everything that's wrong with this industry. The superficiality, the pretense, the way you all pretend to care when really you're just looking for ratings. The producers were frantically signaling to cut to commercial, but Michael waved them off. He wasn't done. If you really believe that, then I feel sorry for you. Because you're so caught up in your own narrative that you can't see when someone is genuinely trying to connect with you. Don't you dare feel sorry for me, Meghan spat. I don't need your pity any more than I need your fake concern. Michael's patience finally reached its limit. You know what, Meghan? You're right. Let's end this now. Not because I'm kicking you out, but because this clearly isn't working for either of us. Fine, Meghan said, ripping off her microphone. I didn't want to be here anyway. Then why did you come? Michael asked again, his voice weary now. Meghan didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the cameras one last time. This is what happens when you try to speak your truth. This is what happens when you refuse to play their game. Remember that. Michael watched her, shaking his head slowly. The only game being played here is the one you brought with you. And I'm sorry, but I won't be a part of it. Meghan grabbed her bag from beside the chair. You don't have to be. I'm leaving. I think that's best, Michael agreed, his voice sad but resolute. As Meghan stormed toward the exit, she turned back one more time. You'll regret this, Michael. You'll regret treating me this way. Michael's response was calm, measured, and final. The only thing I regret is that we couldn't have the conversation I hoped we'd have, the one where we actually listened to each other. But you made that impossible. Meghan's face twisted with anger. You're just like all the rest. No, Michael said quietly. I'm someone who tried. That's all I've ever been. Someone who tried. With that, Meghan turned and walked off the set, her heels clicking against the floor in the dead silence of the studio. The cameras stayed on Michael, who stood there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. He looked directly into the camera, his expression a mixture of confusion, frustration, and sadness. Well, he said finally, that didn't go as planned. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have something a little lighter, I promise. The audience remained silent, still in shock. As the cameras cut away, Michael sat back down in his chair, running his hand over his face. His team rushed over to check on him, but he waved them away gently. I'm fine, he told them, though his voice betrayed his exhaustion. I don't understand what happened. One of the producers put a hand on his shoulder. You handled that incredibly well. You were professional the entire time. Michael nodded slowly. I tried to be. I really tried to connect with her, to understand where she was coming from. But she wasn't interested. Another producer chimed in. She came here looking for a fight. Maybe, Michael agreed. Or maybe she's dealing with something we don't understand. Either way, it's done now. Back in the green room, Meghan was gathering her things, her hands shaking with adrenaline and anger. Her assistant tried to approach her, but she held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. Meanwhile, on set, the crew was preparing for the next segment. Michael took a sip of water, composing himself. He'd been in tough situations before, But nothing quite like this. Nothing that had escalated so quickly and so dramatically. 30 seconds, the floor director called out. Michael straightened his tie and cleared his throat. When the cameras came back on, his smile was back in place, though it carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Welcome back," he said to the viewers at home. "As you just saw, sometimes live television doesn't go according to plan. But that's okay. That's real life. And we're going to move forward." The audience applauded, their support palpable. Michael's co-hosts gave him encouraging looks from their positions off camera. "Up next," Michael continued, his voice growing stronger, "we have a wonderful segment about a local teacher who's making a real difference in her community. Someone who's using her platform for good. I think we all need a little positivity right now." The cameras panned to his co-host, who took over the introduction. Michael sat back, still processing the whirlwind of the last 15 minutes. In all his years of broadcasting, through countless interviews and unexpected moments, he'd never experienced anything quite like what just happened. He'd been accused, insulted, and dismissed, all while trying to maintain his professionalism and dignity. But he had maintained it. He'd stayed calm when others might have lashed out. He'd tried to understand when others might have judged. He'd extended grace, even when it wasn't returned. As the show continued around him, Michael reflected on the bizarre encounter. He thought about Meghan's words, her accusations, her anger. He wondered if there was something he could have said differently, some way he could have de-escalated the situation. But deep down, he knew the truth. Some people come into situations already convinced of the outcome. Some people are so wrapped up in their own pain that they can't see past it. And sometimes, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much compassion you offer, it simply isn't enough. The teacher interview went beautifully. The woman was warm, genuine, and passionate about her work. She spoke about her students with love and dedication. It was exactly the kind of uplifting content the show needed after such a rocky start. During a commercial break, Michael's phone buzzed with messages. Colleagues checking in. Friends asking if he was okay. The moment was already making waves on social media, clips circulating with lightning speed. But Michael didn't check his phone. Not yet. He was still on air, still professional, still doing his job. That's who he was. That's who he'd always been. When the show finally wrapped, the team gathered around him. There were hugs, words of support, reassurances that he'd handled everything perfectly. "You were amazing," his producer said. "Seriously, Michael. The way you stayed calm, the way you tried to reach her even when she was attacking you. That's who you are." Michael smiled, a real smile this time. "I just did what felt right. What else could I do?" "You could have fired back," someone pointed out. "Nobody would have blamed you." "Maybe," Michael acknowledged, "but that's not me, and it's not what this show is about. We're about bringing people together, not tearing them apart." The team nodded in agreement. They'd seen Michael face difficult guests before, but never anything quite this intense. And yet, he'd remained true to himself throughout. As the studio emptied out, Michael sat alone for a moment in the quiet. He thought about the morning, about how it had started with such promise and ended in such chaos. He thought about Meghan's pain, so evident beneath her anger. He thought about his own feelings, the hurt that came from being misunderstood and mischaracterized. But mostly, he thought about tomorrow, about the next show, the next guest, the next opportunity to connect with people and share their stories. Because that's what mattered. Not one difficult interview, but the thousands of meaningful conversations he'd had and would continue to have. He stood up, stretched, and headed toward his dressing room. His phone was still buzzing, but he'd deal with that later. Right now, he just needed a moment to breathe. In the hallway, he passed by a monitor showing replays of the interview. He paused, watching himself try again and again to redirect the conversation, to find common ground, to offer understanding. He saw the exact moment when he realized the situation was beyond saving. He saw his own face, a mixture of disappointment and resolve. "You okay, boss?" A production assistant stopped beside him. Michael nodded. "Yeah, I am. It was rough, but I'm okay." "For what it's worth," the young man said, "I think you're a class act. The way you handled that's why people respect you." Michael clapped him on the shoulder. "Thanks, man. I appreciate that." As he continued to his dressing room, Michael felt a sense of peace settling over him. He'd done his best. He'd been respectful, patient, and professional. He'd tried to understand, tried to connect, tried to salvage something positive from the situation. That Meghan had rejected those efforts wasn't his failure. It was simply the reality of dealing with someone who'd already made up their mind about how things would go. He changed out of his suit and into comfortable clothes. Tomorrow, he'd put the suit back on. He'd sit in that same chair. He'd welcome new guests with the same warmth and enthusiasm. Because that's what he did. That's who he was. And no single interview, no matter how dramatic or difficult, would change that.